Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
Let's go into part 3 of our mock interview series. This one is going to be about pharmacist-specific questions. We have Kelly Haws again from CareerStaff Rx, and she'll be helping us out. So welcome, Kelly, to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what a pharmacy-specific question is. It's generally we didn't hear clinical questions when I certainly was starting. The number one question I got that was a hot button topic for him was, do you have any problem running the cash register? And he wasn't saying, can you count, can you do 10 key? What he was saying was, are you going to be someone that won't go to the cash register? And I said, and I already had that answer prepared. I was like, well, how could you talk to the patient if you're not at the cash register? And he just was like, yes, checkbox. He's making like this huge check on his sheet. Like that was my one question that really just, if I have trouble with anything, it's that, the pharmacist won't go and do what needs to be done. But tell me a little bit about pharmacist specific questions in terms of your maybe clinical knowledge, or are they looking for how you'll deal with other health professionals? What is it that they're really looking for?
So I've seen that a rise in this, even from the 4 years that I've been doing it. But yes, definitely more clinical questions, especially if they are specializing in specific medications. They will ask you questions about how they work, just going fully into the medication itself. But they will also discuss different situations that come up. And I have seen this quite often. They'll give you, real-time scenarios of issues between patients, issues between the pharmacists and the physicians, the pharmacists and the nursing staff. All those things come up, and they want to make sure that you can problem solve around these and not get so upset, not, take things personal, and just solve the problem for the patient, which is the ultimate goal regardless.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, let's get started with some of these tougher questions. What we're going to do is Kelly, I'm going to put you and I'm going to promote you to pharmacy manager right now. So you're a pharmacy manager. You are on your day off. Even better, you are on vacation right now with your family, and you get a call that one of your pharmacists is refusing to fill a prescription because of their cultural beliefs. What's your next step?
So this is very difficult. I'm sorry, Tony, do you want me to answer as the pharmacy manager or just situational?
No, you are the interviewee, and I am telling you that you are, you've worked with our company for a couple of years. You're now in the pharmacy manager role that you said you wanted in the earlier episode. So, you're on vacation with your family. You get a call on your cell phone that's only used for emergencies, and then you find out from the store manager that your pharmacist is refusing to fill this prescription on their cultural beliefs, and the store manager can't do anything. He's not a pharmacist. What do you do as the manager, who's part of this company, but isn't working that day?
Absolutely. So the first thing I would do was ask to be transferred to the pharmacist that is refusing to fill, just to make sure I didn't miss anything being conveyed by the store manager. He may have misunderstood something. So I'd want to talk to that pharmacist to make sure it's truly based off religion, culture, whatever the situation is. I would want to make sure I had all the details from that. The next step is I would ask to be transferred to the technician, and I would have them call a nearby store to make sure they had that medication in stock. If they did have it, I would call them. I would talk to their staff pharmacist or their pharmacy manager, explain the situation without getting too much detail about the other pharmacist's beliefs, and making sure that they were okay to fill the prescription for that patient. And then once that was all handled, I would talk to the patient about it and let them know the situation and tell them that, we could have that prescription ready for them at this different location and they could pick it up, at this time and it would be ready for them. It's a very, talk about eggshells,
Yeah, and it was right out of the gate. It was the first one, so we'd already been comfortable with each other. We've talked about culture. We've talked about your goals. Now let's see what happens when the stuff hits the fan. So we're that you're at this part of the interview, I feel like is good news in that they've extended it this long, to say, okay, well, this is someone I want. Let's make sure. Because I've only got one hire or two hires, that I can do. But what's your thought when you're answering that? You answered it beautifully, but what's your process of making sure that there's a chronology that I, as the interviewer, can follow it clearly?
So you always want to at least talk to the pharmacist that's having the issue. So for me, I wouldn't want anything lost in translation from, a medical professional to the store manager who knows absolutely nothing about pharmacy. So I would want to make sure that I'm hearing the right story from the source. I mean, that's most important. So that's why I'd want to talk to that pharmacist. But I would also want to be respectful of their beliefs as well and make sure, especially as a pharmacy manager, especially in California, these are things that we always have to be aware of and we have to respect them. So I would, talk to them. I wouldn't want them to think that I was upset because of their choice, but I would want to make sure they understood that, because of this, I have to do all these other steps now. I wouldn't want to ask them to call and check for the medication because I wouldn't want them to feel embarrassed about their beliefs and kind of put on the spot or feel like they're being punished for, not wanting to fill this specific medication. So I would have the technician do it because it just takes a simple call to make sure they have it in stock. There's not a lot of information that needs to be passed back and forth there. And then I would take it upon myself to hopefully, if they're available, talk to that pharmacy manager so we could talk about the situation in private and have them get it ready for the patient so there's no other issues. Lastly, I would talk to the patient because I would want to make sure that we are all on the same page, that they felt that they are being taken care of and that in the end, we still, want their business. We want to fill their prescription, just not physically able to do it at this location. And, I think if you're upfront and very communicative with people, they'll usually understand regardless what the situation is.
Awesome. Okay. Well, this is something that I personally run into. So let's say my daughter, she can't get her medication filled without a prior authorization, but you now have a patient who doesn't understand what the words prior authorization means. They say something like, you can't fill it right now because they filled it last time. So why can't they fill it now? What does prior authorization mean? So as the pharmacist, how do you explain prior authorization to me?
So the way I would describe it, and I would talk to the patient, I would hopefully not have the tech do it. I would let them know that this medication is not covered on your formulary, unfortunately. You have had it approved before, but after I talked to the insurance company, they let me know that you already had a current prior authorization that was filled on it and it's now expired. So what we have to do is get in contact with the doctor, and the doctor needs to justify why you need to be on this specific medication. Because you've already been on it, it shouldn't take too long to get covered, but this is the process that most insurance companies use when a drug isn't their preferred drug. We don't want to change the medication because it's been working for you, so it just might take a couple days to get it authorized. From there, I would let the patient know that we're going to be reaching out to the doctor. And then I would encourage them to also talk to the doctor so that we can kind of work as a team to get it covered. And and then I would ask them if they needed, a couple days supply, depending on what the medication was, to see if we could hold them over while we wait for that authorization to be complete.
Okay. All right. Let's go on to one that you addressed a little bit before, but maybe we didn't address as a specific question. So I'm a patient. I come in and I say, I need my narcotic medication. I'm going on vacation, so I'm not going to have any access to pharmacy. The refill time actually falls on the second day of my 2-week vacation. How do you handle this?
So I would first ask them where they were traveling to, just because I think that has a lot to deal with, location wise. If it's out of state, we know there's going to be some hurdles. But I would most likely talk to their doctor about it. To say, hey, let's talk to your physician. Let's see what we can do. They can write you a separate prescription to be filled, within a different state. We can try doing that. And then, there's also the insurance hurdle that you have to go through. But I would talk to the patient about all the loopholes that we as a pharmacy will have to go to get, to get them their prescription, just so we're all on the same page. If their doctor is okay with authorizing the prescription early, this is going to depend on your state laws too that I'm working with. But if the doctor authorizes it, if we can get the insurance to cooperate with us, if your corporate pharmacy is okay with this situation, then we, would be able to fill it. But we would have to go through so many loopholes and make sure the patient's on the same page as us.
Awesome. Okay. Well, you've answered it beautifully again. It's a tough question. It's one that comes over and over again, that we're put in these situations. We don't want to be the messenger, but we're also, by bringing in the physician, we're bringing in kind of a partner in blame, I guess you could say, or something like that, where we're not making the decision. I'm not telling you no. It's, this group, your healthcare team is basically, making this decision. Okay. Well, let's take some more general questions. Like, where do you feel pharmacy is going in the future?
Well, pharmacy is definitely changing. It's very different than, just the medicine shop and, one pharmacist filling a prescription. But I do think with some of the advances of being able to fill and prescribe birth control to the patients at the store level, or even, the local pharmacies focus on MTM and really making sure that our patients are taking their medications appropriately, staying on their therapy. I think we're moving in a direction of less mistakes being made on the patient's treatment side. And pharmacists, I believe, are being recognized more as, healthcare facilitators and part of that healthcare team that the patients experience when they, are being treated for their ailment.
Okay. Well, go a little bit in depth into what you were thinking with that answer. It was really broad, and you managed to narrow it a bit.
Yeah. So I do believe that pharmacy is changing, but there are many advances to it. Being able to work with a patient one-on-one and have it be built into the goals of a lot of pharmacies nowadays, it's so important. We're able to catch so many mistakes, so many drug interactions, and really we're able to take a look at what the patient is taking and, even how to save them money by getting them on a generic drug, or, working with a doctor to change their treatment so it's more affordable to them. With these collaborations, we're also able to control the abuse of a lot of narcotics as well. And I think that in the future, you're going to be consistently working with your doctor and your pharmacist to, maintain your therapy. And, it's not going to be completely separate as it was before.
Okay, well, let's do a little bit about opening and closing the interview. So the opening is generally pretty easy. Everything, we say the niceties and then we shake hands and we start with the questions. But at the end, when they give you a kind of carte blanche, is there anything else that we should know about you before we end the interview? How would you answer that question?
I would say, thank you so much for giving this opportunity to me. I really enjoyed talking to you about this role. From the questions that you've asked me, it sounds like you are looking for somebody with a strong focus in patient care. And I believe that that's something I'm very passionate about. And I'm hoping to, work through the next process of the interviews.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I asked you a bunch of questions here. Anything else that we need to know in terms of pharmacy specific questions? You've mentioned positivity. You've mentioned making sure that you demonstrate your ability to communicate with other people, your willingness to communicate with all parties, kind of be a mediator. Anything else we need to know about those pharmacist specific questions?
Yeah, just, answer as honestly as you can, but definitely try to think big picture when you're answering them so that you can show a solution through your answers. And, the questions that they're asking at the end when you're kind of closing that interview, in your head, quickly think about the questions that you were asked. There's going to be some kind of common ground between those. So, focus on that and try to, close the interview with reiterating what they've kind of been asking you, if that makes sense. So, if they are really focused on, how are you dealing with these difficult situations with the pharmacists and the patients, and your answer is that, you truly care about the patient, make sure you bring that up at the end of the interview. Okay.
So kind of we've talked for, an hour here in this interview, and you mentioned that you were looking for somebody that was customer service focused, that was high energy, that likes working within a team. And, just as I'd done my research into the company, now that I've spoken to you, I can really see myself being in this role. And I love that customer service aspect. And then maybe if there's something that I wasn't as good at, I would mention that. And I look forward to, just getting better at, blank skill or whatever it is. But it sounds like it really just comes down to, as I've done, I'm sorry, these 4 episodes with you, it really comes down to being honest with yourself and the person you're speaking to, demonstrating that you are communicative, and whether you are a people person or not necessarily as much, making clear that you fit whatever role this is, and then that you really remain positive and that you always remain solution oriented, that no matter what the problem, you're going to work for a solution and you'll be a good team member to be part of it. So, well, Kelly, thanks so much for being on. How can people best contact you, or what is the best way to contact CareerStaff Rx?
So you can go on our website. It's www.CareerStaffRx.com. And there you'll see all of the job openings that we have available, as well as ways for pharmacies to get in touch with us if they're looking to hire temporary staff as well. But we are located nationally. We have offices in over 17 states. So definitely reach out. We have an awesome recruitment team that would love to talk to you.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I know that you're very busy and that you've got a lot going on, but you've always made time for the applicants. You've always made time for the students. So Kelly, thanks again for being on the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Tony. Have a great rest of your day.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com, in print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.